Sometimes in the middle of emotional chaos and uncertainty in love, something greater seems to be working behind the scenes. Coincidences that defy logic, unexpected encounters, a deep sense of familiarity with someone who has just arrived. When the universe chooses a person to cross your path, certain signs begin to repeat insistently, like a silent call of destiny. But how can we distinguish what is mere desire and longing from what is truly guided by a higher force? By diving into the principles of Carl Jung's analytical psychology, we discover that what we often call signs from the universe are, in fact, profound manifestations of the collective unconscious and the soul's journey toward individuation. If you believe there is something beyond chance, comment below. I trust the signs of the universe. Get ready to see with new eyes what has always been right in front of you. Carl Jung believed that relationships are not merely the result of chance or conscious desire, but deep expressions of the psyche searching for wholeness. When we feel that someone was sent by the universe, we may be facing an archetypal mirroring between our unconscious and the other, a dance between our hidden parts and the potential for transformation that the encounter carries. According to Jung, the concept of projection is essential to understanding this. Many times what we see in another person, admiration, enchantment, or even discomfort, does not actually belong to them, but to internal aspects we project outward. The he who seems to have been chosen by the universe may be reflecting precisely what we need to integrate: our vulnerabilities, unrecognized desires, or dormant strengths. Another key concept is the shadow, which represents the repressed or denied aspects of our personality. The partner who appears as a divine sign often carries the key that forces us to confront and illuminate those shadows. He challenges us, unsettles us, and at the same time attracts us, because he touches deep parts of us that long to be seen and healed. Individuation, the central process in Jungian theory, is the path by which we become whole, and it often passes through significant relationships. When a relationship seems to be guided by something greater, it usually is not only about romantic love, but about the expansion of consciousness. This is where the integration of the inner feminine and masculine, anima and animus, comes in, manifesting in relationships as mirrors of what we still need to embrace within ourselves. These encounters are more than coincidence. They are calls to transformation. The signs that seem to come from the universe are often not external messages disconnected from us, but symbolic expressions of the unconscious trying to surface into awareness. For Carl Jung, the inner world and the outer world are not rigidly separated. They constantly communicate, and this bridge is built through what he called synchronicity, external events that coincide with meaningful internal states, without direct causal connection, but carrying profound personal meaning. This symbolic language manifests in situations we call meaningful coincidences. Repeatedly running into someone in different places, dreaming of them before an unexpected encounter, hearing their name repeatedly in random contexts, all this may seem accidental to the rational mind, but to the psyche, it is a narrative in progress. They are like dream symbols overflowing into reality, seeking attention and interpretation. The unconscious uses everyday elements to reveal what needs to be seen. When we feel that someone is being chosen by the universe, that feeling may be an internal echo of our own soul, alerting us to something essential, a process of transformation that wants to begin. Through careful observation of these signs, we are invited to descend deeper into understanding ourselves. Life then ceases to be a random succession of events and becomes a mirror in constant dialogue with our inner world. The great key is to realize that this is not about magic or fortune-telling, but about listening. Listening to what the world says through repetition. Listening to what symbols communicate through feeling. The universe does not speak in words, but in patterns. And the unconscious recognizes these patterns even before the rational mind can explain them. Jung said the unconscious is timeless, which is why it anticipates events before they happen in concrete reality. Symbolically, this means that the feeling he is the right person can precede any objective logic and still be correct. This immediate recognition is often the unconscious bringing forth ancient content, deep archetypes, unresolved stories, or forgotten aspects of the soul that project onto the other as a call for healing. These signs can also come through dreams. Dreaming of someone intensely, in scenes filled with emotion or symbolic archetypes, such as marriage, birth, death, light, darkness, mirrors, animals, may indicate that the unconscious is pointing to a transformative figure in your psychic journey. The real person may only be the external trigger for a much broader internal process, aimed at reconnecting you with essential parts of yourself. It is important to remember that, for Jung, external reality is also symbolic. Nothing is only what it appears to be. An apparently casual encounter can carry immense energetic weight if it reflects emerging unconscious content. Therefore, when the same sign repeats frequently, whether it is a glance, a gesture, a phrase, or even the recurrence of unusual events involving a certain person, it is worth considering that something deeper is expressing itself there. The Jungian key is not to search for signs outside, but to recognize them as inner manifestations reflected in the world. This understanding removes the burden of passively waiting for answers from the universe and places the focus on the responsibility of self-knowledge. The universe does not choose for you. It signals what you, in your essence, are already choosing, even if unconsciously. This awareness brings a powerful shift, realizing you are not a hostage of an external mystical force, but a co-author of a reality that responds to your psyche. If the signs are constant, perhaps the unconscious is trying to shout what you insist on silencing. Maybe it is time to stop, observe, and ask yourself, what does this person represent within me? What does he awaken that goes beyond the surface? By interpreting the signs as symbols of the soul and not as prophecies of destiny, we take a step toward emotional maturity. Because in the end, the universe is not choosing for you. It is reflecting what you are ready to encounter. When a connection feels intense, inevitable, or even predestined, it is common to hear phrases like, "The universe placed this person in my life." Yet, through the lens of Carl Jung, this perception goes beyond belief in something external and mystical. It reveals a deep psychological mechanism called projection. Jung stated that in relationships, we see in the other not only who they are, but mainly what we have not yet recognized in ourselves. In other words, the other becomes a mirror, and the feelings they evoke are key to self-knowledge. Projection is not a mistake or a negative illusion. On the contrary, it is a natural and often necessary process in psychic development. We project love, fear, admiration, rejection. Whatever is not integrated into consciousness tends to be displaced outward, manifesting in external figures that seem to mysteriously carry everything we lack or fear. That is why when we feel that someone was chosen by the universe, the connection tends to be loaded with intensity, because that person, symbolically, carries within them parts of us that long to be seen and embraced. At the beginning of a romantic bond, projection is almost inevitable. We feel we have found the right person. We idealize qualities, minimize flaws, and believe that finally, someone understands us on a level that transcends words. However, over time, this idealized image begins to dissolve, and this is when the relationship shows its true value. If we can move through the veil of projection, we open space for a real encounter where mutual transformation becomes possible. Jung warned that withdrawing projections is one of the most delicate moments of a relationship. It is when we stop seeing the other as the savior, the perfect one, or even the villain responsible for our pain, and begin to see them as a complex human being, just like us. It is also when we are called to take responsibility for what we feel. The person in front of us may have been the trigger, but the wound is ours. They may have awakened love, but the source of that love lies within us. By recognizing projections, we are invited to look inward. What we deeply admire in someone may be a quality that exists in us, but that we have not yet had the courage to express. What irritates us profoundly may reflect a repressed, rejected, or unresolved part of our own story. The other, then, ceases to be just a partner and becomes a mirror revealing hidden layers of our being. This understanding is liberating because it removes us from a passive stance toward feelings. If we think someone is chosen by the universe, we must ask ourselves, what does this person awaken in me? Which parts of mine are illuminated or obscured by this encounter? Instead of waiting for the other to fill our gaps, we begin to fill ourselves with awareness and truth. It is important to note that recognizing projection does not invalidate the bond. On the contrary, it can strengthen it. When two people manage to move beyond idealizations and still choose to remain together, they are indeed taking a step toward individuation, the Jungian process of integrating inner opposites and psychic wholeness. The relationship then ceases to be an end in itself and becomes a path of personal and mutual growth. This is the hidden beauty behind the feeling that the universe is choosing someone for me. Perhaps what is being chosen is not only a partner, but an opportunity to see yourself more clearly, to heal old wounds, to integrate forgotten aspects, and to move toward wholeness. Every intense emotion, every disproportionate reaction, every enchantment or disappointment carries with it an invitation to reflection and growth. The other does not come to complete us. He comes to reveal what we have forgotten we already are. And in this relational mirror, the deeper the honesty with ourselves, the clearer the purpose of the encounter becomes. Because, in the end, relationships are not merely meetings of two people, but encounters of two psychic journeys in search of meaning, truth, and wholeness. When we feel that an encounter was orchestrated by something greater than ourselves, that it could not have been just coincidence, we enter the realm of synchronicity, one of Carl Jung's most profound and fascinating concepts. Unlike chance, synchronicity points to a meaningful connection between events that have no causal link, but carry psychological and symbolic meaning. In other words, these are moments when the universe seems to conspire for something to happen, not by accident, but by inner necessity. These encounters carry a force that transcends rationality. There is something archetypal, ancestral, moving behind the visible scene. When someone enters our life with such a striking presence that it defies logic and time, what is happening is an activation of the collective unconscious, a symbolic language that recognizes in the other not only an individual, but a powerful psychic figure, a representative of something our soul has long sought. This figure, often identified as a soulmate, is not for Jung someone who completes us romantically in a magical and idealized way. On the contrary, it is a manifestation of the archetype of wholeness projected onto the other, driving us toward transformation. The idea of a soulmate in this context can be understood as the recognition that the other carries aspects we need to integrate, and that the bond between two people can become fertile ground for individuation. Encounters marked by synchronicity usually share common elements, a strong sense of familiarity from the start, as if souls recognized each other. The repetition of events leading both people to meet, seemingly inexplicable obstacles that intensify the bond, and an emotional depth that surpasses the chronological time of the relationship. Even when the relationship is brief, it leaves lasting marks and provokes deep transformations. This invisible force that seems to move events can be interpreted as destiny, but not a fixed, predetermined destiny. Jung saw destiny as the result of the interaction between consciousness and the unconscious. In other words, when we do not integrate unconscious content, it manifests externally as destiny. Likewise, when we begin to listen to the voice of the unconscious, we attract situations, people, and experiences that reflect this inner process. Destiny then ceases to be something imposed and becomes an expression of what is ripe to emerge in our psyche. The experience of feeling that someone was sent by the universe is often the reflection of an internal moment of readiness. The soul is prepared to take an evolutionary leap, and the other appears as the catalyst of this movement. This person can awaken in us feelings that were dormant, activate unconscious memories, challenge rigid emotional structures, or even embody a powerful archetypal figure such as the lover, the guide, the healer, or the destroyer of illusions. These archetypes are not just images, but psychic forces that shape the way we relate and interpret the world. When one of these archetypes is activated, the relationship gains intense energy, which can be experienced as passion, obsession, deep admiration, or even as a kind of shared mission. What matters, in the Jungian view, is to recognize the symbol behind the person. The he who seems to have been chosen by the universe is in fact a symbolic figure pointing to a specific stage of your inner journey. The great trap of these archetypal encounters lies in idealization. The intensity of feelings may lead us to project onto the other a role that is not theirs, expecting them to act as savior, fulfiller, or final destiny. This expectation creates frustration because no human being can indefinitely sustain the weight of an archetype. That is why awareness is essential. Recognizing the symbolic value of the encounter without losing sight of reality is the balance needed to extract the lesson without getting lost in illusion. By understanding that synchronicity, destiny, and the concept of soulmate are expressions of the collective unconscious in action, we change our approach to relationships. We begin to see each person not as an answer, but as a path. Each encounter becomes an opportunity for self-knowledge, and the he who entered your life so powerfully may be, above all, the messenger of a stage you are ready to live. Deep down, the universe does not send people to save us, but to reveal us. And in that revelation, we find not only the other but ourselves. When a relationship arises with intensity, awakening deep feelings, and bringing to light parts that were once dormant, it is common to think we have found someone the universe chose for us. But in the light of Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the true purpose of such an encounter is not simply to live an idealized love, but to foster healing. And this healing is only possible when we are led to meet our own shadow. The shadow, for Jung, is everything we repress, ignore, or do not want to see in ourselves. These are aspects of our personality we judge as negative, fragile, shameful, or dangerous, and we end up projecting them onto the other without realizing it. In the context of relationships, the shadow appears with great force. What bothers us most in a partner, or what enchants us most inexplicably, is often directly related to what we have not yet integrated into our own psyche. Love in this sense is not just an elevated feeling. It is a field of confrontation, revelation, and potentially healing. When someone awakens us intensely, they are also touching internal points that need to be revisited, and this process can be painful. It is common for deep relationships to lead us to revisit old wounds, rooted fears, insecurities we thought we had overcome. But it is precisely here that the opportunity for transformation lies. The bond with the other works like a mirror that reflects not only our light, but also our shadows. And this reflection, as uncomfortable as it may be, is necessary. We can only heal what we have the courage to see, and often, we can only perceive certain aspects of ourselves when they manifest in the context of a relationship. The person who appears as a sign from the universe may, in fact, be the symbolic key to an inner door we are ready to open. But this process is not passive. It requires presence, awareness, and responsibility. It is necessary to leave behind the cycle of idealization and victimization and step into individuation. The process of becoming who we are, integrating inner opposites, and accepting both the light and the darkness that dwell in us. And the relationship that truly heals is not the one that avoids conflicts, but the one that faces them with courage and truth. Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the inner feminine and masculine, anima and animus, to achieve wholeness. In relationships, this process intensifies. The other often represents precisely that psychic principle we need to develop. A woman who projects her animus onto a partner sees in him all the mental, spiritual, and active qualities she needs to awaken within herself. A man who projects his anima sees in his partner all the sensitivity, intuition, and emotional connection his soul longs to integrate. If the relationship is conscious, it becomes the ideal ground for this integration. But if it remains unconscious, it can turn into a cycle of projections, frustrations, and painful repetitions. That is why the question should not simply be, was he chosen by the universe, but what part of me did he come to help me see, heal, and integrate? When love is lived with awareness, it becomes medicine. Through the other, we have the chance to recover forgotten parts of ourselves, to rewrite inner narratives, to break old patterns. Not because the other saves us, but because, by relating with truth, we are forced to grow. And this growth is, in essence, what Jung called the process of individuation, the soul's journey toward wholeness. In this process, the relationship does not always last. Sometimes healing happens through separation. Other times the bond transforms, matures, and deepens. But in all cases, the connection leaves lasting marks. The person who crossed your path did not come by chance. They came because your psyche was ready to take a new step, and the universe, in this case, is nothing more than the reflection of your own soul in motion. The love that heals is not the one that comforts, but the one that reveals. It is not the one that avoids conflicts, but the one that transforms them into opportunities for expansion. It is not the one that fits perfectly into our expectations, but the one that challenges us to surpass them. When we recognize that the true purpose of a relationship is integration of the shadow, of the feminine and masculine, of the past and present, then we understand that the universe, in choosing someone for us, is merely responding to our own inner call for transformation. And it is at this level that love ceases to be just emotion and becomes the alchemy of the soul. When we feel that someone has crossed our path with inexplicable force, it is natural to think the universe is making a choice for us. But what we learn, when looking through the eyes of analytical psychology, is that these encounters are neither random nor mystical accidents. They are deep invitations to self-knowledge, healing, and the integration of essential parts of our psyche. Every recurring sign, every sense of familiarity, every emotional impact is, in truth, a symbolic reflection of what is already pulsing within us. The other, when seen with awareness, becomes a mirror, and in this mirror, we find our shadows, our projections, our deepest desires, and the real possibility of transformation. Love, when lived as a path, does not only lead us to the other, it leads us back to ourselves. If you have come this far, it is because you feel ready to see beyond the visible. You are willing to listen to the signs with maturity and courage. And if this content has touched something deep within you, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and dive even further into this universe of self-knowledge. Now watch the video appearing on your screen. It may be the next step in your journey of inner transformation.